Recently, it was my 25th birthday. During this time, I honestly tend to get a little depressed because I get feelings of lack of accomplishment. For example, my best friend is almost reaching her last year in medical school, and I didn't even have the chance to start college yet. You know, that kind of thing. I could give more examples, but that would just get me back in my hole of sadness, and that's not what my objective with this video is today. I actually got really depressed for a few weeks. But then I remember this movie, Meet the Robinsons. When I was younger, I used to really like it for the positive message it gave. So I watched it again today as I'm writing the script. And honestly, it really helped. I kept putting myself in the main character's shoes and realizing how a lot of the stuff he went through was similar to me. I really related and emphasized with him on a deep emotional level. I know it sounds really stupid considering this is a children's movie that's not taken very seriously, but I do invite you to open your mind a little bit more to it if you can, because this video will probably touch on serious personal territory. This movie helped me remember something that I tend to forget sometimes. Something that I feel like everyone should always be keeping in their minds and hearts, even in the hardest, most darkest of times. That is the something we will be discussing in this video. Hi, my name is Adara, and this is how Meet the Robinsons reminded me of the great importance of failure. The story of this movie is about a little kid named Lewis who got left in an orphanage as a baby. Lewis, however, has something special to him. He's an inventor. At the age of 12, he can't seem to find someone who is willing to adopt him. He believes the only person who ever wanted him was his mother. So because of that, he gets the idea to build a machine that could let him see his forgotten memories, so he could have a chance to see his mother again and trying to find her. Now, that's a lot to unpack, so let me explain little by little. The way that I started interpreting this movie was by a first-person perspective, an analysis of the psychology of Lewis and later on the antagonist. So this video, instead of me talking about so much as what happens to the story in a linear narrative sort of way, I will be talking about it completely from the perspective of the journey of the protagonist. To start off, knowing that Lewis is an orphan, you will be seeing this movie in the perspective of a person who was born into a situation that would make him feel completely rejected by the world. The one basic need that any child should have growing up is parents. But Lewis didn't have that. So as a result, being that he didn't have the love and attention every child should, he developed a personality that was centered around the concept of wanting to prove himself, show that he is worth something by what he can offer the world. He took inventing as a form of expression, which is honestly quite admirable since it's one of the careers most on demand in the society. Lewis said so in his first family interview that we see. There are so many inventions that could make the world a better place. This line emphasizes the desire to be accepted, to be wanted. I definitely used to and still feel that way too. In my case, it was bullying and family indifference that made me have this deep desire for being wanted or needed by the world. But moving on. Like I said, Lewis has a strong connection to inventing. So strong that you could probably call it a little bit obsessive. Once he gets fixated on a project, he won't stop until completing it. But as is life, he failed a lot. For example, his peanut butter and jelly machine exploded on a man with a peanut allergy, and it took him many trials to finally get his memory machine to work. But it's not only that. Lewis, like I said, failed to get adopted until now. In fact, he failed to get adopted over 100 times. This tells us a lot about the relationship our protagonist has with failure, and how completely unhealthy it is. Lewis counted every single adoption interview he's ever had, and throughout the movie we also see various reactions of his when it comes to his inventions going wrong, from lashing out angrily from self-hate to extreme sorrow and worry from letting people down, or worse, hurting them and causing a mess. Lewis is a kid who is way too hard on himself. So because of that, he takes failure extremely personally. He failed to be adopted.
I have no future. No one wants me.
This is clearly a wound that has been deeply buried in his heart. So much that he refuses to take on any more adoption interviews after that, desperately seeking his biological mother.
I'm not going to be rejected anymore.
Being rejected from his failures isn't the only thing that Lewis struggles with, however. He also has an extremely niche hobby that he really cares about to obsessive lengths. And because of that, he's an outcast in comparison to other normal kids. This shows that his love for inventing is genuine and not just something he does to try and be approved or useful by the world. Evidence of this is seen on his interview with the man allergic to peanuts and his wife. The couple isn't really interested in his ideas, instead asking him if he likes playing sports. His unique talent isn't considered usual, so it can be seen as strange, or even worthless in the sense of, you're not really capable of that. Again, something that I could really deeply appreciate and relate to, since it made me think about all the odd things I was and still am passionate about that I even want to make into my career. And I feel like any fellow artist or entertainer of any sort will be able to relate to that as well. Later in the movie, Lewis's memory scanner failed to work because of a really unlucky meetup with the antagonist of the movie, which we will talk about further later. This is a good representation of failure as well, because it delves into an aspect of it that we sometimes forget to take into account, and that is luck. Sometimes you can do everything right, and still you failed. But the thing about luck-based failure is that it's a force completely out of your control. So, out of all kinds of self-hate, the ones based on failure from being unlucky are the worst kinds, and definitely the ones that we should be kinder to ourselves about. Unfortunately, however, someone who takes failure personally doesn't really see that, because they are so desperate to succeed that they don't even acknowledge luck as a factor. They treat their failures as,
my project didn't work because I'm no good.
Or, I must have done something wrong. I don't know what, but something. When more often than that, that simply isn't the case. Luck doesn't come to you when you need it the most either. Unfortunately, the universe is indifferent and unkind. There are various moments in the movie where Lewis fails where, at least emotionally, he desperately needs to succeed. Like in moments where it would really help his self-confidence. Lewis went through a lot in his life, overall and in this movie. But fortunately for him, it wasn't all bad, since a boy from the future named Wilbur comes to the past to try and convince Lewis not to give up on his inventions. And to do that, he takes him to the future, where the time machine crashes, meaning they're stuck there until Lewis repairs it. And this visit to the future was the best thing to ever happen to him, because from that he meets Wilbur's family, the Robinsons, who is full of really odd, goofy, and funny people. What makes this family so special is that they all really love each other, and eventually also give that love to Lewis as well. There is a scene in the middle of the film that more or less mirrors the one on the beginning where Lewis was trying to present his peanut butter and jelly sandwich machine. Only this time the machine is broken and the family encourages him to try and fix it. Lewis fails again, but before he could get overwhelmingly depressed, the family cheers. They are celebrating his failure as if he had succeeded. Though a bit exaggerated, this scene is the very core of the movie, because it is the moment when the message hits the strongest. It didn't fully hit Lewis yet, but thanks to the antagonist later on, it was finally able to. And speaking of which, let's talk about him now. On the first third of the movie, we get introduced to the bowler hat guy, which honestly looks like if Dick Dashley, Waluigi, and Doofenshmirtz had a child, but hey, I'm not judging. He is our main antagonist, even though technically not the main threat. But I would like to consider him the main antagonist in this analysis because he is a great representation of the worst things that could happen to Lewis if he continued going on a bad path in life, obsessing over failure. The bowler hat guy, or Goob to make things easier, was someone that was overwhelmed and consumed by his failure, so much that it completely and utterly ruined his life. He couldn't move on from one of his failures, which made him be completely stuck in time. He was so stuck in time and so obsessed with his failure that he didn't even develop mentally since he was a child. And you can really see that from how freaking dumb he is. All because of one failure that people had clearly forgotten about and moved on themselves. This scene in the movie tends to be used as a meme sometimes.
Hey Goop, what's up? Cool binder.
Hey, Goop, wanna come over to my house today?
They all hated me.
But the comedy aside, some people in the real world really do tend to end up like this, in their own endless cycle of self-pity and blaming everyone else for their problems, focusing on everything bad as a default in life, not getting over their failures. But why, you might be asking? Why would somebody do that to themselves? Because it's easier. Because they don't have the strength to do otherwise. To be better. Being stubborn and holding on to negative emotions and struggles does nothing but make everything worse. But some people can't see that. Some never do. My mom is like this. And it's not for a lack of me trying to help her. She simply refused to try. Sometimes people don't change because they don't want to as well. It's horrible. But there's literally nothing anyone can do about it but keep moving forward with your own life, even if it means leaving those you love behind. But you know, even if you know someone like this who refuses to change, it's never really too late for them. But these people need to do it on their own. They need to make the right choices on their own. Otherwise, they're just going to suck up every bit of physical and emotional energy from you. Goop was finally able to do the right thing at the end of the movie. He was able to move on after finally realizing that hating Lewis for ruining his life was pointless. When we last see adult Goop, we see him walking away. We don't know where he's going, but he took that first yet huge step, and that's all that matters in the end. I mean, Lewis did help him not fail at that one event, but hopefully this still won't happen to him in the future. Thankfully, that would go against the moral of the movie, so I don't think it does. Eventually, Lewis and the bowler hat guy finally meet. When they do, everything is revealed to Lewis and the audience. The villain was Goob all along, and Lewis was Cornelius, Wilbur's father, meaning that the Robinson family was his from the future. I mean, honestly, I don't know how Lewis wasn't able to figure this out already on his own, considering he deciphered the whole family from one meeting alone, but I'll let it slide. After Goob tells his story, Lewis defends himself.
Look, I'm sorry your life turned out so bad, but don't blame me. You messed it up yourself. You just focused on the bad stuff when all you had to do was let go of the past and keep moving forward.
And that is where it finally hits him. By the end of the movie, after the main action-filled conflict gets resolved, Lewis goes back home. Before doing so, Wilbur keeps the old promise to him to see his biological mother. He almost does, but in the end, decides not to, because his family isn't her. His family is the future. He goes back to his present, meets his foster parents, and lives his life. All is well. I have days where my past and my failure haunts me. They put me on a hole filled with nothing but depressive thoughts and self-hatred. I miss my dad a lot. There are days where I think about everything I regret not doing with him or for him, or even the things I did do that I shouldn't. I think about how different my life would have been if he hadn't passed, how much less I might have suffered. But then I think about my life now, who I am now, and I feel like the good things that happened to me wouldn't have happened if he was alive either. Letting him go was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Sure, I miss him from time to time, but there's nothing I can do about it anymore. Nothing except keep moving forward. Failure hurts. It can cripple you for days, even weeks, months, years. I have days where I can't even get out of bed, but I have to fight it. You have to do your very best to subvert your expectations of yourself every single day. So try again, even if you're tired, even if you can't take this shit anymore. If you don't, you might end up like Goop, fogged by his own bitterness and miss all the good things life has to offer. I promise you, what you find ahead will surprise you. You'll succeed eventually. Maybe not in the way you wanted or planned for, but you will succeed at something, because something will work out. So please, do your best and keep moving forward. And with that, I conclude this video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you made it this far, dear viewer. I really appreciate it, since I feel like YouTube is sometimes just my glorified therapy treatment sometimes. But hopefully, this was relatable and comforting to some of you, as that was the objective of the video. I do have a quick announcement to make as well. I have a Discord server now, so if any of you would like to join, you are more than welcome into our little community. It's pretty small for now, but we have a nice time there talking about all sorts of stuff. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, we would love to have you there. If not, but you still enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And if you're feeling particularly generous, please pledge $1 over to my Ko-Fi page. All proceeds will go into the making of more great videos like this. That being said, I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to stay determined. TFN, guys!